The next speaker, Alluc, is going to talk about incident response. So please give a warm round of applause.
Alright, today we're going to talk, as he said, about incident response, something what we're all missing. I'm just putting down the slides of what we're going to do first. So we have a preface talking about who I am, and then we go through what we're going to do, what's to talk about. So, incident response. Why should we bother about this? I mean, if you look at the recent things that happened, most people don't bother about the incident response. So we find out in our industry that not really many things have changed in the last decades, and we still staying there, be totally surprised that there's some people out there hacking, doing things, and it's not really that we know the plan, that we have people really taking care about it. So the question is, why should we bother at all? Well, there's a simple answer: because we should care, we should take care about our customers and our clients in the industry. Actually, out there, many people don't even care about security. The program has to be done real quick. It doesn't matter what happens in it. It should just be fast, be done, no code reviews on security-wise. If the functionalities are okay, the program is okay. Same goes for networks. I just hired network people, and it's horrible what you get in there. So you're happy when you find somebody as an administrator at all. So that's kind of difficult, and then we should start bothering and should start educating people. Yeah, that's what I said. There's not much what changed since 1986, where the first virus was programmed. Question is, where am I? I'm doing a podcast in Berlin, CIO of a company, a mid-sized, like 11,000 people. We're doing some martial arts, doing some hacking and stuff like this. So the question for us in the infosec is, what is an incident? Well, an incident is when Nicholson approaches you and cries out, "Maintenance window," and punch you right in the face. If you put this on a computer, that's an incident. Sure enough, an attack on the network is an incident, or when Andreas starts scanning your network. For some networks, this is really an incident, and they just break together and don't work no more. A social engineering attempt always is an incident and should be reported if found out. A lost USB stick in both ways is an incident. Either you find it and plug it into your machine like the French did and got Conflicker on their defense system, or you just depose a USB stick with the data of your company on it. Both as an incident should be reported. And sure enough, a McAfee update is an incident too, when your Windows machines don't boot no more. So the definition is clear. Incident is everything what hurts us in our company, and what hurts our network, what hurts our programs, and affect the user or our data. So the question is, how do we prepare for incidents like this? I mean, we should have a policy, and this policy, there should be clear defined what an incident is, who you call when you have an incident, when you can call, what should be 24/7, stuff like this should be written down in the policy, and this policy should be given out to the people, and it should be trained how to react when you find out an incident. The question is, how do you find out about the false positives? I mean, sure enough, if you go to the user and ask him for incidents, he maybe start finding things they never happened. So you should really have an incident response plan and an incident response team. So the question is, who gets the policy, who gets the incident response plan in your company? So the policy should be given out to everybody who's working with IT stuff, and your guards should know about this policy for SE attempts. If you have salespeople, they should know about your incident response policy, because when somebody comes in to do an SE attempt, then they maybe find out the guy was fishy, so they should report that. So your security team maybe know from an ongoing pen test and can put this in the right spot. The incident response plan should be with your incident response team. So you cannot expect regular workers to know about the incident response plan. But the team who takes it in, the help desk team who is going to take this incident and write it down in a ticket, they should know how to handle, who to call, if you need an extended forensic, or if your own team can do this. And so you should have the incident response plan handed out to the people working in IT security, to the administrators, to the help desk. Firewall administrator, as it says on the paper. What you should do too is you should create a security incident response team if you not have done so in your company yet. I know some people are bored because there's common knowledge, but we're coming to the point after a few introduction words to incident response. So this team you should know how much budget you have for creating such a team. How many people can you afford? Which type of people can you afford? Do you need an external forensic group who are supporting you on that stuff? You should get the right people. What is not the easiest part. And you should have the right software. And then the question is, can we use forensic technique, or how we use forensic techniques in the incident response? So you should have at least 1 or 2 forensic people in the incident response team who can actually examine hard drives after it happened, who can check out the servers, and who can look for traps or for things that are still there. The next thing what you should do to save your face is do responsible disclosure. I mean, many companies are failing on responsible disclosure. Sure enough, you have to report to the police, but there you need really somebody who advises you which information you should put out to the police or which you should keep for your company, because a company who don't have secrets actually have nothing to sell. So even at the police, people are working and you don't know, so you should really consult your external forensic group and find out which data you really should give to the police, what do they really need for their work. And the next question is, what do you give out to your staff? Well, you have to divide your staff by the salespeople, the people who are buying stuff, and all these departments, and your IT security or your IT people. The next people you should inform about your incident are maybe your business partners, like Lockheed Martin, who got tokens from you and maybe get pwned while you got pwned before. So you should be responsible and talk to your business partners and tell them, we got an incident, we handled it this way, you should be aware you're using our product, you might have a problem with that, and you should inform your incident response team, change the software, change the tokens, whatever it takes. And sure enough, we have the public. Doing this on public is a difficult task, and most of the time you find only open source people who really can go out to the public and say, yeah, it happened. But some of the companies, what we have in the good companies, they go out, they say, we had an incident, that's what happened. We promise we fix that hole. The way we have been owned won't happen again. You shouldn't underestimate, when you have worked for a company, what the public thinks if you don't do this, if you try to hide an incident. You need to understand you have people working in your company. People are talking, they're using Twitter, they're using Facebook, they have all kinds of social media. So you should be aware you cannot hide an incident as soon as people in your company knowing about it. So you should talk to your PR department together with the incident response team and say, okay, this is what we can give out to the public, and that makes us look much better than trying to hide information and trying to pretend that we're not pwned. So I was talking to John McRae before, and he said GNU is quite good on this, GNU.org, because they got pwned, and they wrote down on the website, and they say we got pwned, and everything is how they got pwned, and what happened, how they fixed the hole, and so on and so on. And I say, okay, when was this? And he said, that was 5-6 years ago. I said, okay, 5-6 years? Well, either they don't have an incident response team no more, or they don't do a good public relations, because you can't tell me that you haven't been pwned in 5-6 years anymore. I mean, we have types of companies in this world. One is the types who understand there are people out there, there are hackers out there, there are script kiddies out there, and don't understand and believe they are not going to be hacked. So there's not such a thing like you staying there forever and not going to be hacked. Maybe you don't detect it, that's a different thing. And I look around, I guess most of the people are here working in infosec. How many of your guys at the company have an incident response plan? Raise your hand. It's not the majority. Okay, are you all have an incident response policy too? Okay, is everybody in your company aware of the incident response policy? Everybody. See, we're going down here. And I have to be assured, I mean, this is the hard task that even when somebody who cleans your desk sees something what could be an incident, he has to report that in either way, and most companies that don't work out. And if we look even here, where we have only technical people, even here it's just a minority who are really living this through, and that's the problem of our industry. So the question for us is, why is this so? I mean, I'm too fast now. I mean, why do we handle this in such a, let's say, unpleasant way? Why don't we bother? Why don't we go up to the CIOs, CEOs, or CSIOs, whoever, and say we need that? One problem is, most of the people, they don't see the impact. If the incident occurs, then it's too late, and then it's the impact there, but the team is not there who can fix it, and you don't know what got stolen. And then you put out big bucks, you have to find a forensic company. What's not too easy when you're in pressure already, find the right partner. Maybe you find the wrong partner, and they don't perform right, and then you don't know exactly which data are now stolen or which programs are on your machine uploaded, and this is a real problem. So if you can convince your CSO that you need an incident response team and you need an external partner or internal partner who's doing forensics, then you maybe save the hassle, because if you don't have this, that's going to not make you any good. It's going to really be pain. So the talk is the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we have examples here for companies or organizations who has an incident response plan and really worked on it. And as you will see there, we have Komodo on there. Yeah, that's funny, but it's the truth. I mean, even I don't like to say that, but they did incident response. Apache is sure enough, I would say, on first spot, because you can almost yearly find some blog posts where they say, okay, our servers have been pwned, that's what happened, this is the measurements we took against it, and we're not talking only about 2009, where this big incident was, what everybody saw, but they do this regularly. I mean, here we have the last blog post from 2010, September, what I found quickly in the first search on Google, and that's 1.2. If you go there and you say, how can I trust these people? And you go to the Google machine and you ask, hey Google, can you tell me about their incident response? And the first few sites are from the company or the organization by themselves. For me, that makes a much better feeling than when the first response from Google is searchsecurity.com or HSecurity or Hack in the Box or whatsoever. So on Apache, we really see how they work on that. and put this out, and you find their website like instantly. The same is on PHP Fog, what is a hoster, I think they do cloud stuff. And he wrote, I think he's the owner, wrote a really nice blog post, why he got pwned, and he really gets into it, and he describes to people who maybe not as technically as you guys, and tells them what happened, which measurement they took, and all kinds of stuff. So that was quite good. And yes, Komodo had a breach on March 15. They start to respond, they send out information to their customers, they send out information to their partners, and did a blog post already on March 23. Well, it's not as fast as Apache, they do it like almost every day, the next day, but for a commercial company handling SSL certificates, that's not bad if we look to other people. Kernel.org, now many Linux people are going to cry out, oh, why are you choosing kernel.org on that? I couldn't find any statement from kernel.org on Google in the first search, so I have to go to 3-4 pages, couldn't still find kernel.org. Why they're not ugly? Because kernel.org are using GRT, what means that when the source code is checked out and back checked in and changed, the owner of the code will be notified. So it's not an ugly one, but still I think they like on the public information, especially on operation system, which so many people are using. Sony, still bad, not ugly. They disclosed information very, very late. But they did. Every day there came new incidents out, but they tried to catch up somewhen. And well, we had a big pressure on them, but there was enough public relations that they couldn't hide an incident and tried to do things. DigiNota got to incident response, but it took them over 2 months to let people know who using their certificates that they have been pwned. And that is not good because in 2 months many things happens. It's like 40 networks are pwned in, I think, Iran, right after the incident. Many things have happened in this time, and a lot of people got problems because DigiNota was like certificate in almost every web browser and most operation systems, and 2 months delay is really too long for information to their customers. Because there we are not just the public, we're their customers as long as we're using computers. And we got the ugly. Nobody would bet this. We got RSA. Anybody of you guys know how long it took until we been notified about the RSA hack? Did anybody know? Well, RSA, the hack was 2 years before we got notified. I had a friend in the bank and he told me, listen, it's not public and we shouldn't talk about it, but RSA got hacked, token got pwned. We got a real problem. We need to keep this confident and secret because otherwise we get into problems. But this is a long time for hiding and opens many doors to the people who did the pwnage. So this is really ugly. Apple, even when Apple don't get pwned, they get pwned with the programs are used, and Apple are hardly patching stuff. From DigiNota, everybody else was already responding, and the guys in Cupertino don't. And if you look in the Apple operation system and you just dive a bit down from the nice color, shiny, whatsoever, you will find really old programs like an Apache version, what really kicks you. Like in 10.5 we had like still an Apache 1 point whatsoever. Apple has bind always old, and they're not really into patching stuff that is open source. So that is a real problem with using this stuff, and it's not what we can call or consider a good incident response, even when the incident is somewhere else. It is an incident for me too when I have this program rolled out to my customers. So they should respond, and they should respond faster, and they should inform their people about the breach that happened. Because for us, when we have a company, we need to check every patch if this don't hurt our programs or internal programs. And if I don't know what's in the patch, it's really difficult to to check it and decide what I want to roll out and what not. And Apache always says security update, but they don't say we updated. So you have to really find out and have to diff what is changed to the machine after you're applying the patch, what makes it really hard for the guys who is doing the patching management. On HP, just don't talk about it. We have fails that are over than 1,000 days, 0 days, they just don't patch this stuff. I don't know if they have the big ignore button or something like this. It must be something. But at least they got good now on the PCs. They just turn off. So sure, we should have read a bit about this. I mean, we're now sitting here, all the industry of people, and we knowing incident responses are bad, and we know all this stuff, but we should fix that stuff. I mean, what's about 509 right now after those breaches? As far as I know, StarSSL has a problem, DigiNotar got a problem. I mean, this is kind of dead, isn't it, Dan? It is, total, yeah. And the question for us is, what do we do now? How do we treat our customers now? How do we fix this? How do we manage that our customer starts to doing an incident response? That is a real question. And if you look about the virus stuff, and you look about the attacks, which APT did you saw the last, let's say 5 years? Except Stuxnet, what was advanced with the PLC code in there, 4-bit and all this stuff. So Siemens code is not too easy to write, and they really put money on it. But look at your daily rule sets. I mean, what is really APT on that? How long is DDoS around? How long we have SQL injection around? This is so long around that people start being bored and write GUIs for it. It's like, if you look at Beast, this is a GUI which makes SQL map, Nicto, Nmap for everybody. So the attacks we're facing every day are not really new and they're not advanced. And still it works out. I mean, if you look at a Sony, we still go with the browser, you still can go on Sony whatsoever address and go into an internal network. Still. I mean, after a breach what was costing them really heaps of money, you still can go into their network with a browser. And there's the question, we need to fix that. It's not the bad company, the bad customer, we need to fix this. We really need to open their eyes, we really need to go in there and talk to these people and fix this and punch them in their face. So the question is, how can we change this? How can we fix that? As a customer, it's easy. You don't buy from these people if you know. So that makes it easier, a bit more difficult. As a professional, you just say, I offer you this job, I work with you guys, but you have to. Boom, boom, boom. If we would be unified and would like all think like this and not starting to be greedy, and then it maybe could work out that we could push the customer in the right direction. What is kind of difficult. Yeah, and if you look at your incident response plan, who got the incident response plan again? All right, if you look at your incident response plan, do you have LulzSec in there? Do you have Anonymous in there? Your daily script kiddie? Maybe. And whatever group is just trying to fuck you over. Because the question is, in an incident response plan, how do you plan future incidents? That's a difficult thing, right? So we need to and this time we need to go further, much further. We have groups, they're just playing around and pwn you because they can. And we have people, they pwn you because they need the information you provide in your company. And the incident response plan, most of the time, says the little things you can imagine and see in your, let's say, narrow mind of your team, of your incident response team. But what you need is you need to to cry out to the social media, you need to find out what could be a possible threat to my company. And the question is really, do you have social engineering attacks in your plan? I mean, this is all things that daily happens, and that's a problem. So incident response plan, maybe you should consult more people than only the incident response team, and maybe you should go out and consult people who are not really into IT security. Maybe you should consult people who are in a different field of the security. Maybe you should consult people of physical security. Maybe you should consult NLP people. Not for an NLP session to learn, but to learn how that works. So that you can detect social engineering attack, what is quite good. So you need to extend your bandwidth. You need to consult much more people than the technical guys, because the technical guys say, oh, DOS is happened, and my server is down, this and that and that. But for a good incident response plan, you should have a business impact analysis too. Because maybe there is an incident, but maybe it don't hurt. So when I don't have an business impact analysis, even on this stage, it's hard to determine what is a bad incident or what is an incident that we can handle, let's say, later, or what we can handle with less effort. Yeah, then there's the question to you guys, who will fall next? What do you think? Everyone? Everyone will go into this year? Huh?
Sony again.
Sony? Sony didn't come up yet.
Again.
Sony is always. Do we have a hand microphone? So we better. Who was it? Him. Is this Chris? Yeah.
I said everyone has been owned this year. Who hasn't? I mean, you keep up with Antisec and MulSec, and I mean everybody. I can't think of anyone who hasn't. That's a big company. If they haven't, you know, all the rumblings of Zero for owned, like they're supposedly coming out with a new doc stuff. All these people that have been owned all year as well. So if they haven't been announced, it's coming soon.
Or maybe they didn't found out yet. Maybe it wasn't destructible enough. Yeah, actually, I'm quite fast. I'm almost through the talk. less ranting from the audience than I expected. So while we're through the talk, do you have any questions about incident response, how to handle and stuff like this while we have it? All right.
Actually, I just have a remark. I just read that DigiNotar has bought a certificate from Komodo. They're using it now.
Wait, what?
Well, there's another funny thing. There's this one company called RSA, and they had some problems with tokens associated. And there's another company, and they're really kind of laughing about these problems that RSA had. DigiNotar belongs to this company who started laughing about these problems. Is it true that the Dutch guys, DigiNotar, doing the packet inspection too for the government? Does anyone know?
If they did, they don't do anymore.
Anything else?
How specific do you want your incident response plan to be? Because ours is very thin and relies
Well,
very hard.
see, you cannot put everything in the incident response plan, that is for sure. But you should actually go on to known attacks. I mean, most of the incident response plans, what I saw so far, they didn't even have attacks from 20 years old in there. I mean, let's face it, I think over 80% of all attacks are older than 20 years, what we're facing right now. And many incident response plans, they're not precise enough what people can do then. So you should have sure enough the regular attacks in your incident response plan, but you should start thinking about what happens when my social media site is pwned. What should we do then? What happens when the Twitter account of our CIO is pwned, or CSO, or whatever, one of the officers is pwned? What should we do when we have DDoS attacks from people who are just pissed because they don't like our logo? We have now different types of attack, old attacks, but right now people with different approach, what you cannot really predict. Because LulzSec, how are you going to predict LulzSec? How are you going to predict when you're pissed off Anonymous? So that's things what you should put in your incident response plan, and I think you should at least have some not in the plan, but in the policy, you should have some behaviors for people there on SE attacks. So the policy is something different than the plan. The plan is for the IT personnel, but the policy is for your guards at the door too. So you should tell them when somebody comes there and he's trying to be fishy and he makes like, I got the best of doom, I don't want to come in, and I don't have a paper, an official paper, but I still want to come in. You should tell them what to do then. So there should be a policy for different people, and it should be understandable for them. So while writing it, it shouldn't be in all technical terms. Don't say tailgating or something like this, but you describe whatever you have in the policy. While in the incident response plan, you should really do a business impact analysis. And everything that hurts your business, you should put in the incident response plan. So that is what Nickerson had last year here on the talk on BruCON. He was talking about 5 ways to destroy a company. When I remember right, he chose a, let's say, not too good example with a hospital, but is drastic enough to make you understand what hurts your business. And in his way, he said, if I kill one of your customers, that hurts your business. So if I disadjust your AC, or if I just disadjust the mixture of your tablets, of your pills or drugs, that will make more damage to your company than when I get your credit cards. So you should make a business impact analysis and find out what is hurting you the most, and then you should have an incident response plan, and then you should probably go like, this is priority 1, this is priority 2, so you should prioritize the response. And you should really consider having a long-term partner on forensics. If you don't want to spend the money and have an own forensic, but external group is sometimes much better than having them internal. Because ideas are different, probably. It's the same when you go to an accident and let's say there's some, in German we call him Sachverständiger, who's a guy who examined the car, the broken car, and the car is brand new and it's all full of computers, and he's asking the builder of the car to send some people to read out the computers. How can you trust them? By law, at least in Germany, you can't trust them because they're not what we call unabhängig, so they have to go for their company. So sometimes external forensics are much better than internal. More questions? Yes?
We in the infosec community, we seem to be starting for buzzwords such as APT, or Advanced Processing Threat. And in recent years, for example, with starting with the I guess with the Aurora incident involving Google, we have several companies such as Mandiant, which has a CEO, as a Chief Information Security Officer, Richard Petlik, whom I respect a lot, seem to be coining these terms all along. They're speaking a lot of the threat of APT, and keep saying you are not, you guys, you are not aware of what is really APT. Believe us, we are a professional incident response team. We've seen a lot of it. This is coming from China, from Russia, and other companies. And even some, many of us in the infosec community said that the RSA incidents is also APT. And I would like to know your take on this, hated debate in our community.
But for the incident response, does it matter if it's an APT or 80 years old? Does not really matter.
I mean, do you really believe that such thing as an APT exists?
Well, I had a nice discussion with Dan today, and we was talking about APT, and there was a nice word what Dan said, and I think it's very smart. He said, it doesn't matter how you call it. If you get the awareness of the user, because you call it now APT and have this buzzword, and you get the user to recognize there is an incident, then fucking call it APT. So I totally agree with that, because if we get their attention, well, then we make it advanced. Surely not advanced. Most of the breaches are not advanced. I mean, I just know a few of the hackers who go in there with no Metasploit and stuff like this. They just have a terminal and maybe a browser. But I know one who's doing this. He's doing maintenance Windows too. 12 o'clock. Any one of you don't know what I mean with the maintenance window? Good, everybody's listened to expert reliability, that's good. All right, more question? Yep.
Thank you. How would you go about influencing senior management decision about disclosing a major incident? Because most of the time it's way beyond your own jurisdiction, and most of the time they're not very inclined to communicate about this. And you spoke about the bad and the ugly. So how do you not be the bad of the ugly?
I could now say it's easy because I'm a CRO. No, the question is, how do you talk to your management at all? To your upper management? How do you talk to your upper management? Well, with numbers. If you want to talk to your upper management, you want to convince them to buy something, then you have to bring in numbers. So you need to tell them what it costs when they fuck up.
Yep, the big
And you need to give them a chart which says how big the chances are that they fuck up. And then you should talk with the PR guys and have them in your boat. You need to have a middle management in your boat so that they talk to their people in the board. And then together with them you have to find, let's say, allies. And if you have the sales department and if you have the PR department with you and their managers, and you make a team meeting with them, and then you show nice little charts, not like I do, like real charts, and you say, okay, that's the number. If this breach gets out to the public, we're going to lose this much amount on our whatever sales. Then the sales guy going to cry out, and our reputation goes to the pot. Then the marketing guy is going to really cry out. But those two guys together, now you go to the CIO or the CSIO and convince them. Try to find allies. If you need to convince upper management, you need allies.
Would you have an example of a number that we could use? Because to my experience, it's pretty recent that very big incidents have been exposed in the headlines, and also I'm guessing big companies are pretty reluctant to disclose the financial impact of such incidents.
Look at Sony. I don't know exactly the number, but I think it costs right now 50 or 70 times more than they would have if they had right incident response. Sony is right now a buzzword what you can use for your upper management, because if your upper management didn't know from the Sony incident, your company is not around anymore. So not any longer, then they don't need to bother. Then you're looking for a new job and it's okay. Any more questions? Yeah, come on, Wim in. Oh, you got your own microphone, cheater.
I have my microphone. That's how it goes here. What I wanted to ask is, you mentioned the RSA hack in your presentation.
Yes.
From your point of view, from an incident response plan angle, do you think they handled the incident well? And
Well, if they handled it well, they would probably end up the good, not the ugly, in my presentation. No, I don't think they handled it well, because try to hide this stuff over years from a big amount of your customers is probably not the best incident response. I mean, they told the banks, but they not necessarily told other customers about it. And if you just look at the tokens, tokenization, there are many people using these tokens. So they should probably, I mean, you know what it was hacked, right? It was not just the numbers, the database with numbers, but the algorithm how to calculate this number was hacked too. And you should probably fix that quick and give out new tokens. When did he start giving out new tokens? After some Lockheed Martin got pissed on? Well, that's a real question.
But their incident response, if it was bad, it didn't really impact their business. So from their point of view, they did a good job.
In the long run, it will. In the long run, it did. But it's an easy job when you're one of two issuer of tokens. And people already spent millions of euros or dollars in your company. But still,
what I'm unclear about is...
What you want to say is that I should understand that incident response is not necessary for other companies.
No. I think incident response...
It's not an impact. Well, the problem is, on Sony, on the other hand, it was a big impact, the bad incident response. And it depends on the company, sure enough, how you respond anyway. I mean, you cannot do the incident response or the disclosure on every company the same. And I understand when you're a security company and people depending on your security, that you're not crying out to the public at first. But maybe you should cry out to everybody you issued certificates to, or maybe you should cry out to everybody you issued tokens to.
The goal of incident response is to limit the impact on your business.
Sure, it's the goal. And the goal is probably to make sure this incident don't happen another time. But that's one part of the incident response. The other part is that you keep your face and people buy in future from your company still. And maybe less people now buying from RSA. We will know the numbers in 1 or 2 years from now.
That's true.
Dan, you have a question?
So, what's your thinking on mandatory disclosure of compromises? In other words, if you are larger than a certain size and you're compromised more than a certain depth, not only do you need to do breach notification, but the actual details of your break-in must be investigated and publicly disclosed.
Publicly, I'm thinking as a manager of a bigger company that you at least should have some time to fix the stuff, because sure enough, in a bigger company you take longer to fix shit than in a smaller company. You have more servers, you have more people to reach out, and everything takes forever. Public disclosure, it's a sort of two cutting ends, because it can hurt and it can be good for the public. It's a nice dream.
Do you think that governments should be providing resources to companies?
Yes, because governments, we pay them for. Those are our employees. They should let us know. I only think maybe when our security is endangered, then we should give them some time ahead and then they should disclose. But the way the states handle this, where they say we do disclosure after 70 years, and then the disclosure is not full disclosure, I don't like that. Behind you, another question? It's a reaction. React.
You responded that you're not necessarily in favor of immediate disclosure or limited disclosure.
Unlimited. We was talking about unlimited disclosure.
You're in favor of unlimited disclosure, especially when privacy is involved and all the individuals should be notified. That's my view.
Right. I mean, it should be understandable that you need time to fix stuff and you need time to notify the people who got hurt, the people with the certificates, that you first tell them, okay, we issue something new, and that the disclosure, you can go in full detail after you have everything fixed, and then you have to find out if you have some private information of your customers, if you really should disclose the stuff. If they are a private person, not companies.
In line with that, I believe that incidents should be disclosed to a central body somewhere, so that let's say government
part on it is the registrar supposedly be neutral. The bad part is maybe he's in favor of another company and you don't know. People working there.
So the incident could be disclosed in an anonymous way, at least showing what has happened.
That is a good thing if you have the possibility to say, okay, technically we have this incident and you fully disclose this to an authority. That's a good thing to go after you fixed it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't open your company and throw it away. Any more questions?
One more question.
Yes.
How would you think of a solution which would be that the incident response would be required to be audited? And if so, what kind of standards we need to develop for auditing those kind of incidents?
That's a difficult question because standards for auditing tend to fail. If you look, there's the idea. They got the idea we should audit, if somebody works with credit cards, we should audit this, and we call this PCI, and the idea is a good idea. But the problem with auditing by standards is that the standards are, most of the time, don't grow. So you need some living system, and you need some people like us who say, we auditing your incident response, and we live this. You need people like Nicholson, they say, oh, fuck the standard, as long as you see that everything works fine. They try to set a new standard for the P-test, and I don't know if they have incident response. Anybody from the P-test here? Do you have incident response there? Yes. So maybe we put this in the P-test, and maybe people start working after P-test. But even that needs to be a living system. It shouldn't be dried out and used up like PCI.
So an open type of auditing, which would be an open standard, which would be growing and living, that would be a better solution.
Yes, it should be from the community who testing, because they know where the fail is.
Thank you.
In reference to your point there, how we can change things as a customer. And you reference Apple in terms of how they're now updating their open source software.
Yes.
If you look around here, you see the number of Apple iOS devices that are running here. You wonder how as a security community, how our voice is not being heard, and we're not reacting to decisions our vendors are making as well. You look at the number of Android devices that are here, and how broken the security model of Android is. So are we, as a community, failing to make our voices heard, or vendors, they don't really care, we're such a small minority?
I think we're not failing our voice get heard. What we're failing is using the right tongue to talk to the right people. This is the most problem we face. As long as I hear from a pen tester point of view that I'm user, and you can't patch the user and stuff like this, we're putting ourselves away from our client. So what you need is to learn how to talk to the management. You need to learn how to get the ear, and it's not that we cry out and nobody listens to us. The way we cry out is probably not the way people understand. It's the same when I start talking to you in Japanese. You might understand, you might not understand. And it's the same way we talk to people. So that's what I liked on this guy from PHP Fog, that they cried out to people in the way they understand. Just really quick in preparation, read their post, their blog post, and that was understandable for normal people, what we call normal people. And that's saying normal people by itself is wrong already, because we're normal people too, so we should understand our clients and we should talk in their tongue. We cannot expect them to learn our crazy terms like OX41. What do they know? Why should they? Why should they bother? There are things they know what we don't know. Most of us can't even feed by ourselves. That's true. Did you try to grow potatoes already? More questions?
Yeah, one question. What about organizing exercises and training instead of the auditing for the incident response teams? Many of these teams, they have these policies, and probably they have some way to, they think they should respond, but they have never tried it.
Well, one point is, you don't have the golden way, right? Because there's something what calls budget, ugly thing, most of the time much too small. And in my point of view, you should first audit this thing, fix it, and then train it. Sure, without training you get nowhere, right? But you are on a point somewhere right now in your company, and you have or have not an incident response plan. If you have not, then you should get some people who know about the stuff and prepare one. But if you have one, you should get audited, because maybe we are narrow-minded in our company. Maybe we go the way we did always. And maybe we did it because we know it's cool. And maybe somebody fresh from outside got totally fucked up ideas and fucks us over. And like real bad. So this is better somebody who audits us than evilhacker.com. So this guy, when he audits us, we should fix our problems and then train the new way. And then still live this. Means get the audit again, let's see if it's reproducible, if you learned our lesson, and then do the training again. Because it's almost worthless if you do one auditing and a year later everybody forgot about it. You have to look if this is reproducible. You have to do the auditing again and again. And if you reproduce, you maybe should do the same attack so you can see if people adapt or not. So training is a good thing, but first know your weakness. It's the same in box sparring. When you do a sparring with Mike Tyson, you will find out your punching or your failures really quick. When you do the same sparring with me, you maybe don't even get hurt, right? So that's the point. Any more? Good. Then we filled it. Thanking you for listening. It was nice talking to you. Maybe not as boring as I thought. And see you next year. All on Berlin sites.